some good news in terms of another complaint that we'll talk about here. For the first time since 9/11, the federal government is taking steps to look at the use of explosives to destroy the World Trade Center buildings. Now remember, we had 2 planes, but we had 3 buildings fall in their footprints. Now, we've never had any steel skyscrapers fall into the footprints before. We have had skyscrapers hit by airplanes. As a matter of fact, it was part of the building code. Well before the World Trade Towers were built. Nobody filed any lawsuits against the city for an insufficient building code. Nobody filed any lawsuits against the architects for having a bad design. Actually, what it is bad physics, bad optics for these people. As Free Thought Project points out, in what can be described as a monumental step toward the relentless pursuit of 9/11 truth, a U.S. attorney has agreed to comply with federal law requiring submission to a special grand jury evidence that explosives were used to bring down the World Trade Centers. Again, we had 2 planes, but 3 buildings fell down. And that 3rd building, Building 7, we had the building owner caught on tape saying, "Pull it." Pull it is the term that is used for demolishing a building. It collapsed in its footprint. All 3 buildings just collapsed in their footprint. They didn't topple over. They didn't burn for days. We've had steel skyscrapers that have burned for days and did not ever fall into their footprint. They didn't fall in at all, as a matter of fact. Most of them never collapse, steel skyscrapers. Even if they burned for days, yet they just collapsed right into their footprint, like a controlled demolition. What's up with that? And, of course, you got the BBC complicit in that, reporting that Building 7 had fallen quite a while before it had fallen. You could see it over her shoulder. It was still there. And now we have the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. They've submitted a petition, and now the federal government has answered that. I'll have more details on that when we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In this last segment here, I want to talk about what's going on. The Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. They've been tirelessly working on this. I interviewed them this last year as they put together this petition. A lot of documentations. As a matter of fact, documentation, they've got a lot of documents, I meant to say. They have a 52-page original petition accompanied by 57 exhibits. And what they say in the petition, they say presented extensive evidence that explosives were used to destroy 3 World Trade Center buildings. Again, we had 2 planes, 3 buildings fell in their footprint. One building, Building 7, was never struck by a plane. And the other 2 buildings had only burned a short period of time before they just immediately collapsed into their footprint. Never seen anything like that before or since. You should be asking yourself some questions about that. And so we've had different groups. We've had pilots for 9/11 Truth say, the things that were told about these planes, how they flew, the speeds that they flew, the altitudes that they flew, not possible. We've had engineers say what we've been told about the collapse of these buildings, not possible. We have lawyers now who have put together research that a lot of people have had, 52 pages of this original petition, 57 exhibits, as I said, all these different documents they put together. They as they say, present extensive evidence that explosives were used to destroy these buildings. The evidence included independent scientific laboratory analysis of World Trade Center dust samples, showing the presence of high-tech explosives and or incendiaries, numerous first-hand reports by first responders of explosions at the World Trade Center on 9/11, expert analysis of seismic evidence that explosions occurred at the World Trade Center towers on 9/11 prior to the airplane impacts, prior to the building collapses, and expert analysis by architects, engineers, and scientists concluding that the rapid onset symmetrical near free fall acceleration collapse of 3 World Trade Center high-rise buildings on 9/11 exhibited the key characteristics of a controlled demolition. The Lawyers Committee's July 30th amended petition addresses several additional federal crimes beyond the federal bombing crime addressed in the original petition, and the Lawyers Committee concluded in the petitions that explosive and incendiary devices pre-placed at the World Trade Center were detonated, causing the complete collapse of the World Trade Center Twin Towers on 9/11 and increasing the tragic loss of life. And of course, if you have a building that collapses like that, And there's no investigation, no lawsuits into the construction or the inspection of the building, no explanation as to why Building 7 would collapse. Again, it wasn't even hit by a plane. There was a minor fire, and this building just collapses like a controlled demolition as the building owner is heard saying, pull it. As the BBC announces prior to it happening, the reporter standing there saying, well, Building 7 is now fallen too. And you can see Building 7 over her shoulder. If you are going to pull that, that's going to take a great deal of preparation. Just think a little bit about what happens with a building demolition. Go to YouTube and take a look at building demolitions. Not all of them come off as smoothly as World Trade Center. They don't all just collapse vertically into their own footprint like these 3 buildings did. 2 planes, 3 buildings. And so these people put this stuff together, meticulously compiled all this information. They sent it for investigation, and they have gotten a response now from the Justice Department saying that they are going to, they said, we have examined this, and we are going to comply with the provisions of 18 U.S.C. 3332, which is the legal code. What does that say? Well, it's the law states that any U.S. attorney receiving information concerning an alleged offense from any other person shall, if requested by the other person, inform the special grand jury of the alleged offense and identify other persons that might require attorney's action or recommendation. The law also states that it shall be the duty of each special grand jury impaneled within any judicial district to inquire into offenses against the criminal laws of the United States alleged to have been committed within that district. I mean, this looks, based on their response, it looks like they're going to convene a grand jury to take a look at all of this evidence from witnesses, from scientists, and so forth, that this was a controlled demolition. Very important. This could be very, very significant. I've only seen this reported in one spot. It's on the Free Thought Project. To put that in context, we have a Massachusetts judge who is now being investigated for a possible role in helping an immigrant escape from ICE. Now, this is up in Massachusetts.